have been working with work sessions since the March 25th date, of which Micron provided us essentially with their version of the draft environmental impact statement. For everybody who isn't as familiar with environmental reviews, that is not the environmental impact statement. That's what the company gave us for review. Our teams at OSIDA and our consultants in Commerce and all of our state agencies have worked very diligently over the last few weeks with work sessions, putting in thousands of hours to strengthen that document into something that eventually could be deemed complete for public review. The lead agencies anticipate, and there has been a special meeting scheduled for June 25th, where the IDA board will be asked to consider and vote this document ready for public release. The hope is that OSIDA will vote to release the document, and this will begin the public comment period, which we have already extended from 30 days to 45 days. The comment period will be June 25th to August 11th. If OSIDA does take this vote, which we anticipate they will, it will be posted on OSIDA's website and made available in hard copy at various locations throughout the area for public review. We also anticipate that OSIDA will announce a public hearing to accept comments on the draft EIS. Tentatively, the hearing would be held on July 24th, 2025. And I use the word tentatively, that is the goal, subject to potential change, but essentially that's about 30 days after the document will be made available for a public comment, for a public hearing, excuse me. Once the comment period closes, OSIDA and CPO will work expeditiously to respond to all public comments and to prepare a final EIS. It is expected that OSIDA will vote to accept the final EIS in October. Once it does, OSIDA will then wait the minimum 10 days to issue its finding statements and complete the secret review for the Micron project. This will position us for a potential construction groundbreaking towards the end of November or early December. Saying that, that is the schedule related to the environmental review, which I want to thank all of our team members who have been working on this. This is the sausage making behind the scenes, which is critical to the process. This is what will answer the questions the public has related to traffic, related to mitigation, related to all sorts of impacts to the community, and certainly this is what is necessary in the state of New York to get a mega project going. So we're really pleased with that. Also, one of the probably overlooked aspects of this project is the massive infrastructure projects being undertaken to support not just Micron, but community growth and the growth of high-tech manufacturing for generations to come in central New York and in Onondaga County. To update that, we have 2 wastewater projects that are being undertaken essentially on the same timeline with the Micron project. Final budget estimates are not in, but certainly these 2 investments, building out the municipal expansion at Oak Orchard, which will include a recycling water utility, and then in addition to that, the industrial wastewater project, which will support its first industrial user, Micron, but we anticipate other industrial users as well. This budget will be over $1 billion of investment, so massive investments, which will drive more jobs, certainly, and really put us on the map as well. To give an idea, we've already started the design work on the municipal expansion at Oak Orchard. Building out that expansion creates capacity. You've seen the pump station project, which is already under construction. The design for the Oak Orchard expansion is underway, and we anticipate releasing an RFP in late summer, fall for the construction for that project. That will be phased. later on, we'll certainly be looking at the reuse facility in 26 and 27. So that will be a phased expansion there. Related to the industrial, our teams are working diligently. Our hope is that we will have RFQs for design build. We received specific design build legislation for this project in the state budget. And then we will be asking for an RFP in the fall so that we can bring on our design and construction team for the industrial project. And we expect that to be complete. Micron right now is going through their own bid process related to their construction team. I know they'll have things to say down the road, but certainly it looks like they're getting very close to decisions on their project as well. I'm going to move into the topic of childcare, and then I can take questions. Right now, one of the things that we're very proud of is the fact that we've worked with federal and state partners to really create support for working families related to childcare so that folks can go to work. And so to give everybody an idea about our program, in 2021 we had 1,500 cases in the program. That was essentially about $20 million worth of costs and support to families. In 2022 we had 1,900 cases. That's about $25 million of support. In 2023 we had 2,400 cases, about $26 million of support. In 2024, we had 3,100 cases. So you can see the program growing. Part of that growth is because we were essentially marketing the program. We had revenue there that was being unused. We wanted to get more families to know about this. That 3,100 cases represented about $37 million worth of costs. That's an increase of 108% of cases since 21. In 2025 now, we have 3,143 cases. On February 28th, we were notified that our allocation from the state would be $44.5 million, essentially capping the program and actually being underwater on the program fiscally. In the New York State budget, our delegation worked to help provide $2.9 additional million. And so with increased income eligibility, right now a family of four eligibility has increased from $108,000 to $113,000. The program is seeing tremendous pressure with the current budgets. We have asked for, at this time, even with the New York State allocation, the program is over budget by about $2 million, and that even includes local matches. We have asked, and that's essentially why a wait list has been put on the program on June 1st. We have asked for a programmatic waiver, similar to what New York City has had. What this waiver will allow, it will allow us to put eligible cases at recertification on the wait list if they fall within 3 federal priority populations. The district will implement the wait list for new applications as instructed in the regulation, but cases at recertification can be extended if the family meets 1 or all 3 of the federally mandated populations. New York City has already been granted this waiver, and we are assured by New York State that our waiver is coming. This basically allows families in the program today not to have to go through a recertification process and then potentially be on a wait list moving forward. Once the funding is available, the county will continue to open cases off the wait list based off of the federally mandated populations and then the state priority populations if funding is available. We need the waiver to be granted where we can even figure out budgetarily when this could potentially happen. Our goal is to make sure that any families who are in this program today remain in this program, and that new families we would then manage moving forward. And we'll look at this monthly to determine what we can do. And certainly we are considering adding more funds to this that could possibly eliminate the stoppage, but we need the waiver first from the state of New York. These actions do not apply to foster care parents whatsoever. Foster care families will continue to receive child care. So basically the short of the child care issue is we administer a federal and state daycare program. The daycare program for years had money available that we were not essentially using. We did a very good job over the last 12 months letting the public know that these slots were available. So much so that essentially when our program was capped by the state of New York, that we were then underwater. We lobbied, we got some more money. Essentially, it wasn't enough. To avoid chaos of having to recertify every year for these families, we have asked for a waiver so that we can keep the families in the program there. And also that allows us the ability to try to financially look at potential offsets and look to see what is left on a waiting list moving forward, and to see if we have local dollars to help get those families into the program. So that's where it stands, and we will continue to update the public related to that. But definitively, any foster care families will receive child care. And our goal is to make sure that any family that receives child care today will continue to be in the program, and we'll have more to come on that issue. Happy to take questions on these three topics or others.
The fee I asked was supposed to come out this week. Why is it 3 weeks later than announced?
Yeah, I think overall there was a goal of this week, Glenn. I think overall there was a decision made by all the parties involved to make sure that this document was so thorough and so complete that it would save us time on the back end related to comments and questions. As you know, there's going to be dozens and dozens of comments and questions, and we have to answer every one of them. So by putting in a little bit more work on the front end and being more thorough, it's going to save us time on the back end, which was a decision we made with the professionals in order to keep the construction timeline period intact. You can do it on the front, you can do it on the back to make sure that we get to where we need to be for the construction project. We made the decision to do it on the front end.
So you're going to stick to the NEPA required 45 days, not because people have asked for more time and more public hearings.
Yeah, we think this is going to be a very thorough document, and we think that the extension we've granted of an additional 15 days, an additional 50%, should be enough time for people to have their comments heard and responded to, and their questions essentially answered. There will be a public hearing where people will be able to go 30 days later, so they'll have 30 days. If somebody's really engaged in this project, right, and really has questions or concerns, I would think they would take the opportunity within 30 days to review it, and then certainly can go to the public hearing, and then there'll still be essentially another 15 days to continue to put forward comments and concerns.
Given the huge push to make sure that Micron does happen and the promise of how much it will transform the community, how should the public trust that OSIDA and the county will take an honest look at what the environmental impact statement says and not just want to push forward to getting construction started?
Well, I mean, laws are laws, Connor. So these are laws, right? And so you're talking about regulatory agencies, dozens at the state level, dozens at the federal level. And so, I think overall, the county, this modern day county government's the one who led the cleanup of Onondaga Lake. We're the ones who paid the bill. We know what it's like when, lack of regulation on the private sector, what it can cause to impacts to the environment. So you're looking at the people that are paying the bill, and I was the chairman of the legislature paying a lot of those bills, and I was the county executive when we cleaned up when we finalized that lake process. So overall, I think everybody should understand, if your concerns are environmental regulations, you're in the most environmentally regulated state in the country. So much so that it is not a good reputation when you're creating economic opportunity. It's a bad reputation. And so I think overall, there's lots of regulations. This document addresses all those various regulations, and certainly the mitigation plan will be one that will hold the test to all those regulations.
Are there many areas in this document, as those folks are going over it, that they think that have the most potential
I'm not sure. I think just from the questions I've been privy to related to the public, which I'm out quite a bit in, I think most of them are related to traffic and what's going to happen and how's it going to flow. Obviously, for those of us who live in the northern suburbs now, traffic's an issue now, right? And so I think this document will talk about definitive things that will be done and then give options to the federal government, similar to the 81 project, about things that they could do, and certainly the federal government will choose its own mitigation, not us. But I haven't heard as much about other concerns. Certainly, there's certain endangered species that have been made famous internationally through this process. I think my friends in Japan and Taiwan know about the Indiana bat now, which is what it is. Certainly, because of the Indiana bat, this whole timeline could be afforded to go a little bit longer because you can't cut down trees or clear the sites till November anyways.
What do you think about forcing a 91-year-old woman out of her home to allow Micron, even though she has a lifetime agreement to live it?
Yeah, she doesn't have a life estate. She has a licensed use of the property. Terminology should probably be looked into there.
Can you explain that?
What that is that there is not a lifetime estate on the property. It's a license agreement to use 3 acres out of the 27 acres that were purchased by the county back in 2005. The county of Onondaga, the IDA, actually owns that property. And so when you look at the current value of money, the King license agreement was worth over $2 million, and the King license agreement was worth no taxes on that property since 2005. So you're talking about a compensation in today's terminology of probably about $2.3 million for a license agreement. We don't negotiate in the media, but certainly we're trying to work with Mrs. King to rectify the issue so that she's not impacted. And that's our goal, just like our goal has been with every other property owner we've dealt with related to that. But the idea that the county of Onondaga will pay $10 million for land it already owns is asinine.
But my question was, she has been promised she could live there the rest of her life, and now she's got to be pushed.
I wasn't there in 2005 when promises were made. I was running for Common Council. And so I don't know what the promises were. I can tell you what the legal document says, and it doesn't say life estate. That's a fact. And so I don't know if that's accurate, Glenn. But needless to say, we'll work with Mrs. King's representatives to try to make this easily transitional thing. The idea that Mrs. King will not be impacted on the construction project, literally the property around her is going to be a massive construction project. That's not, no matter what, even if she stays in that house, there's going to be huge impacts.
How tight is this timeline? I mean, you have no wiggle room. Let's say if you have to add more time to the comment period or anything.
Yeah, I think, look, whenever you have groups demanding more time before they've even seen a document, shows that they have their own agenda, right? Our agenda is to answer the questions, the fair questions for everybody, for the taxpayers of Onondaga County, not some outside interest group. So the reality is this process has taken, over a year, with people working and looking at the toughest regulations to address in really the United States. So I think we're getting close to this, which is great. This is progress. This is a big deal. And I don't know that more than 45 days is merited, based off of what? So I think certainly if something comes up in this comment period that is unforeseen, then I think certainly everybody has the ability to extend it. But I don't think, we've already extended ours. We already extended it 50%.
Have you been able to, go through the documents, the pages and pages?
No.
No.
No, I haven't seen it. It will be, the IDA will get the final DEIS. I understand that a version of the DEIS was obtained through a leak, but the final DEIS will be available, and voted on the 25th.
And you said there's been a lot of diligent work to strengthen this document to something that could be deemed complete for public review. Have you been a part of that process? Can you tell me what that process is like?
Yeah, so what it is the Micron has their professionals they've hired. The regulatory agencies, from the DEC to the EPA, to the Army Corps, DOT, anybody that touches this project reviews it related to it. For us, WEP, right? WEP is, Aqua. So we review the plan from our regulatory purview, right? Then the IDA has their own consultants as well, attorneys, engineers, traffic engineers that review it, because at the end of the day, it's the IDA's document and it's the Department of Commerce's document. It's not Micron's. It's not any other state agency. It's their document. And so you've had work sessions. We've hosted work sessions where in this community where we've had representatives from 30 different agencies here, right, working together, going through this, right? And so it's a pretty substantial process. And everybody wants to get it right. It's essentially the largest and most scrutinized environmental review in the state's history. I argue, the country's at this point.
Switching gears to the child care issue, with what you were describing with getting the word out and getting more people into this program, did the county overextend itself?
We didn't overextend ourselves because we didn't have a cap on the program until that date I gave you, Connor. So the idea was that there was no cap and there would be resources there. And then I think it was in February 28th, we were notified that our allocation was capped at $45 million.
How much money were you expecting to have to play with?
We, for example, in the program, we were spending 20 to 25, 45, right? That's a big shift. We didn't know that there was going to be a cap related to that. So the cap changed everything because then you have to look at your current enrollees, what they cost, and then certainly limit those new enrollees based off of budgets. Our budget, for example, is, we're a January to January budget. Our budget was done last October. So this is, we're halfway through the year on our budget. So it's not like we have the ability to go budget more money for it on our end.
So what was that process in terms of the state telling you how much money you had for this program? Because there's documentation with OCFS showing that the county agreed with that agency that there was around, I think, $46 million as of November 2024. So at what point in the year does the state normally say, here's your budget for this? Or to your point about finding out about the cap in February, is it normally a blank check? How does that work?
I don't think there's a blank check. Do you have anything more to add on that, Ann? Yeah.
In terms of the dollars amount spent, over the last several years, we have been getting the allocations that other counties haven't spent. So they look at our enrollment and they've been sweeping other counties' monies to us. And so that's why the cap put an end to that practice.
So heading, as of February 27th, county thought you were all set with the number of people that you had and the amount of money that you were going to have, and then suddenly you get a cap.
Yeah.
Is what you're describing.
We didn't know that they were going to end the practice of sweeping other counties' monies to us. So when the cap, that ended that practice. And so the reason we've been able to enroll all of those families was they were looking at our enrollment, looking at which counties weren't spending their allotment, and sweeping the necessary funds to us.
How big is the waiting list right now?
Very, very small. Since it started June 1st, I would say probably under 10.
I just wanted to ask Ryan in regards to the upcoming open public comment period. Once the DEIS is released, has OSADA indicated how they plan to conduct those? Will there be several meetings, or just maybe meeting at the War Memorial or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they've determined where they want to physically have the meeting yet. I think we've had we've used, I think, Liverpool School, I think we've used CNS School before. Those are logical places related to this project. The project's going to be impacted. This, both with Micron, with us, with all of our construction we're doing, right there, right? So it makes sense that your most engaged stakeholders will probably live out that way. I think that will be that. But again, once it's reviewed, there's going to be hard copies of the review distributed all over the place, right? For anybody who wants it, right? And so they have the opportunity to see that. Certainly we'll get it into libraries. There's 30 libraries throughout the community and other places that the community can easily access it. And then certainly you all will have it, and other stakeholders will want it, and we'll get it, right? The idea is that everybody who wants it has it, and they got 45 days to review and submit comments or questions.
And when they want to comment, do they go directly to OSIDA?
Yes, OSIDA. What will then happen is OSIDA and the Department of Commerce will then have a period of time to answer the comments and questions as part of the process to get to the final environmental impact statement.
Will the DEIS be posted online or not?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Well, potentially things could change, I mean, from the comments, but that they could change the document, or do they just have to answer the questions?
Yeah. Well, I think Ellen, I would think it could change. Yeah, depending on if something is certainly brought up that was missed, right? A significant finding that all the professionals that have been working on this missed, right? You have to take a hard look at all these comments and concerns to make sure that they're being addressed in the actual final document.
I want to ask about another topic, the West Hill lacrosse players. Your probation department is going to be overseeing that, so I want to ask you what you thought of the disposition of those cases and how your department's going to handle them.
I think overall, the family court has guidance. Certainly, the county attorney, probation department work with family court. These are minors. Look, what happened was stupid and it was terrible. And I think overall, I know the community really well. I grew up in that community, not too far. I didn't go to West Hill. I went to Bishop Autumn, but these are, if you are involved in a sport and your kids are together since when they're 7 or 8, going to tournament after tournament during the summer, during the season, you spend a lot of time together. So I think the trauma of this is severe, and I think the pain is very severe because the parents are all friends. The kids have known each other their whole lives. And so I think at this point, the community wants to try to figure out a way to heal while holding the students who are responsible accountable in a way that sends a message that kids don't be stupid like this. And so I think overall it's an extremely difficult position. The letter of the law is the letter of the law. There's police reports. The county attorneys reviewed them with probation. The probation's looking at the letter of the law, making recommendations to the judge, and then the judge is going to do what the judge is going to do.
Do you believe that the district attorney and the sheriff's office handled things correctly from the way that this all started?
I'm not in a position to opine on I'm not a lawyer, and so I think there is an investigation. I think the district attorney probably did, by him taking the decision out of the parents' hands, probably assured accountability, Connor, because like I said, with these relationships, these parents might not have ever did anything related to pressing charges. So I think if the DA did not do that, you may never have seen accountability related to this topic.
I wanted to ask about the I-81 project in relation to the president's Big Beautiful Bill and how grant money might be getting cut there. What impact might that have on the reconstruction of 81 after this one?
Well, I don't think anything's getting cut related to the actual 81 construction. Are you referencing the housing project, the $30 million? Yeah, look, we're against that. We fought hard with the city to get that $30 million. As you're aware, Congress put forward their plan. The Senate is going to look at it, and then they're going to have reconciliation. That program where that $30 million is in is a popular program. There's other communities throughout the country in blue states, purple states, and red states that are in a similar situation that Syracuse is in. So we'll advocate directly to the majority leader and the minority leader, share our perspective. We view it a little bit differently too. We view the fact that we spent the first half of this conversation today talking about the largest private sector investment in one community in our country's history, and how to help create that cluster, the Central New York Semiconductor Cluster. We need neighborhoods, right? We need housing, right? And so we think that this could help support what we're trying to do here too. So there's a lot of synergies, and so the federal investment could help complement the investment that the federal government's making in the investment tax credit and the CHIPS and Science grants.
And to go along with that, in terms of building the housing even closer to Micron, I noticed some new development around Route 31, some new apartments going up and so forth. Are you in contact with the town of Clay supervisor, Damien Ulatowski, to see if there are other projects, building going forward, whether it's homes or apartments?
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on related to housing. I think when, at the state of the county, we highlighted the fact that we have, in some form of planning, 16,000 housing units. That doesn't mean you're going to get that right away, right? You have capital decks that you need to stack. Some of these are really ambitious plans. But I know that in the town of Clay has already approved in planning, I think, close to 3,000 units. That's a lot of units for a community. And so I think overall, the key to all this was we had Plan On as the regional roadmap. We recognized that this was going to impact each community differently, and they should have their own comprehensive plans where they look at housing, they look at zoning. And we realized that sometimes an excuse people make is I don't have the money for it. So we actually paid for many of these plans for these municipalities, and they're in the process of this. I think there's 13 or 14 different municipalities that we help pay for their comprehensive plans, and that will be a roadmap for the development community within those towns or in those villages. We do planning for the city of Syracuse already to look at opportunities and where you want housing, where you want commercial, right? Maybe you want some industrial. Those will be good roadmaps. So I think overall, there's a lot of units on deck. Our housing study says we need about 21 to 24,000 units in the next 10 to 15 years. If we execute it on what's in front of us over the next 3-4 years, we'll be in good shape.
Where does the Great Northern Mall revamp project stand? Do you know? It's in a holding pattern?
I think you had one partner buy the other partner out. And so, again, you're talking about $1 billion vision for a project. To get that flowing, you need a lot of capital, and you need some anchor tenants too. So I think overall, I don't think you'd have to talk to the developer. I don't think the vision has really changed. I think that, there's probably a couple tenants that they might have thought they had and lined up that maybe they still do, or maybe delayed overall. But I think overall, a lot of the capital that is needed to drive some of these bigger projects is waiting for that shovel to get in the ground at Micron.
Do you know if Guy Hart owns the mall still?
That's my understanding, is that,
okay.
yeah.
When you say housing units, as you mentioned, that the town of Clay is looking at, is that a combination of apartments and homes?
Yeah, and I think our wastewater expansion that we talked about, again, municipal, the town of Clay, that opens up a lot of land with sewers, right? So I know that's going to drive more housing as well. I already know of different home builders that now can build homes on their lots where before they didn't have sewers.
On childcare, what's the solution here going forward year over year? I know you talked about that waiver process, but is it going to the state and asking for a bigger budget?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think from a regulatory standpoint too, there's some things they can adjust which can make the money go longer. I think right now they're allowed like 80 absences per child for the child to stay in the program. And think about it, if you got a kid and they're missing 80 days, they're probably not in the program, but you're still you're paying out, right? I got 3 kids. I know that if I 80 times. That's pretty bad. But for some reason, that's one of the regs, right? So we think 30 is probably a better day, a better number there, right? You want to, no daycare provider will take a kid if they don't have any absences where they can get paid, right? But that's a crazy reg, right? So I think some regulatory changes will make the money go further. But again, these are pretty strong incomes now. For a family, $113,000. Those are strong incomes to get support, right? So I don't know where it's going to go moving forward. I know that at the local level we have a match. Certainly at the local level we can't sustain a program with the dollar figures of $45 to $50 million. The state and federal dollars will help drive how many people can qualify.
And then a pump station at Oak Orchard lost power, and I'm told 5 million gallons of untreated sewage went into Oneida River. Is there a remediation plan? Is there a chance that could happen again? And then why is there not a generator there?
Part of this expansion, there will be a backup generator. It was not untreated waste. It was treated. It just wasn't fully gone through the process we normally would like. I believe after that, how that happened, I believe, is some private company contractor took out National Grid infrastructure, right? So certainly there could be potential liability for that company. But the expansion will address that issue for backup power. But we were monitoring, I believe it was the Oneida River, for the DEC regulated issue. We talked to our regulator, the DEC, right away, and certainly those things happen.
Fantastic. And then really jumping topics here, but last year there was a financial audit with the regional market. Have you noticed any changes since then financially?
I think there's a lot of changes at the regional market, all good. And so I think overall, Bill Fisher, former deputy county executive under the third county executive, Joni Mahoney, has done a nice job there. We've invested $4 million there to help create more opportunities for Bill to do his job. They had a pretty ambitious plan that almost received state funding this cycle. I think they're well positioned to receive state funding in the future, the immediate future as well. And I think there's more momentum, more energy there. I was at the Market Diner and talking to the owners there, and they're pretty excited for the first time in a long time. So that market's going to be a great incubator for ag and we have a ghost kitchen which we're funding, right, for small businesses, and those small businesses maybe end up at the South City Market later on, and they maybe have their own storefronts, right? I think overall there's a lot of potential there, and I think it's going to be something the community is really going to be proud of. So.
Do you have an update on Shopping Town Mall and redevelopment? I haven't heard anything in a really long time.
Well, I can tell you, I never thought buying a mall would be so hard. But the overall, we're 2-0 in court. Okay, the title is an issue, right? So you can't. Remember, Sears and Macy's have what's called a reciprocal easement agreement, where they can block any development on the site. They can block it. So we're going to eminent domain to take them off the table. So there's clean title. There was an RFP at the time with OHB to redevelop it with a Vision District East. I think certainly there could have been maybe some more progress related to that. And I brokered these two, OHB and the Macy's, to talk to try to get a deal done. And on concept there's agreements, but still disagreements. So I'm getting frustrated with Shopping Town Mall. And certainly a lot has changed since when we did this RFP before. Small little project has been announced. There's probably been about $2 billion of other projects that have happened since then. So certainly I'd like to see progress on the development side, and if I don't feel we can get progress on the development side, I'm okay with doing a new RFP too.
Would that entail the developer coming up with more concrete plans, even amid this legal battle?
Yeah, I think this is hard, right? Overall, I thought we had Benderson and OHB close to get a deal, and we had a deal on concept, and then the finer points haven't happened yet, so I'm frustrated with that. I think the one thing that is given time is that the Macy's, which is Benderson, and Transform, which is Sears, has a Hail Mary potential ask that the Court of Appeals would take up this case, right? That's like less than 1%. So that just stalls things. But I think overall in the next month, I'm going to know where we want to be on this. I think that a lot's changed since we put this deal out, and if the parties can't come to an agreement as is, maybe we re-RFP it. I'll have to make that decision.
What's that?
Thanks, everybody.